Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, is getting ready for its general elections come February 2023. As the political season for February 2023 draws near, fears of the spiraling rate of insecurity or attacks across various areas of the West African country has intensified. Nigeria's northern region had been an epicenter of increasing violence from armed groups referred to as bandits or unknown gunmen in the northern or Nigerian media until January 2022, where the Nigerian government declared them a terrorist group. Worrying is in the light of 2023 elections, the federal government fears opportunist groups could be used to perpetrate elections violence or stop elections in strongholds of opposition politicians. Last week, the US or the United States and Britain issued warnings regarding the insecurity rate in the West African country, which is not the first in Africa in the wake of elections. Today, we shall be trying to find answers to the link between the security concerns and the presidential polls to take place in 2023. Stay with us. Hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you immensely for saving the rendezvous once again over your Pan-African channel for you Media Africa, where today we're discussing Nigeria. Of course, the country, the West African nation, is supposed to go to the polls come February 2023, and of course there are worries or fears in the country regarding the security situation that is ongoing there. And today we shall be trying to find the relationship or find answers to the relationship between the spiraling insecurity or security concerns in the West African country, as well as the upcoming presidential polls that is supposed to take place in the presidential country or the West African nation of Muhammadu Buhari. And today I'm joined by two seasoned guests, Mr. REMI ADEBAYO, who is a public interest commentator, joining us all the way from Nigeria. Good day to you, sir. Mr. REMI, good afternoon. We shall equally be joined, ladies and gentlemen, by Dr. EDI ERIC, who is a program officer at the Solidarity Center Africa Department. He's joining us all the way from the United States of America. Good day or hello to you, sir.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Sharon, and always a pleasure to be on this panel.
Thank you so much. Just to get indications, we shall be joining Mr. Rebi subsequently. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed today's topic of discussion, I'll channel this first question to you, Dr. EDI ERIC. What do you think, in your own perspective, what is the security situation in the West African nation of Nigeria?
Thank you, Sharon, for this first question. I think the first thing we wanted to understand is the general context in which these elections in Nigeria will be taking place. I had a pleasure to participate in the forum on October the 11th, featuring the chair of the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria here in the United States in Washington, D.C. And the perspectives, were truly look good. One of the things that we need to understand is that, yes, West Africa and Nigeria especially has been engulfed for so many years with the government's efforts, of course, to quell down this rise of insurgency. And when we look at the history of past history of election in Nigeria, we all know that on many occasions that they have been at least since 1999, when Nigeria really returned to the path of electing their presidents, quite a number of deaths related to. But this is not particular to Nigeria. We know the case of many West African countries. However, what is going to take place, early in 2023 represents a huge challenge, and not just for Nigeria, which is the most populated nation in West Africa and in Africa, but also but also for the entire West African region. Why do we say that? We all know that there have been a recess of democratic orders in Africa in general, in West Africa particularly. We know that the year 2022, 2021, 2022, even 2020 were mad with a resurgence of a political coup. And what is going to take place in Nigeria today today in early next year will demonstrate, right, the viability of electoral processes if it goes successfully without the type of violence that what we are warning against, and it will definitely set the pace ahead. However, there are minimal concerns. For me, it is not just about insurgent groups, it's not just about terrorist groups, it's not about violence of that kind, but it's also about the security, the minimal human security of each of the voters who will present themselves at the polls, the security of the candidates as well, and even the security of the people managing the electoral process itself.
Thank you so much, Dr. EDI ERIC. Just to proceed with you, Mr. REMI ADEBAYO, who is a public interest commentator, joining us all the way from Nigeria, as I earlier mentioned. You are in Nigeria. What do you think is the current situation in the country? Mr. REMI? Mr. REMI, please, can you hear us? We're having a little bit of connection issues from your end. Probably later that should be resolved. In order to proceed, could spiraling insecurity, the insecurity crisis in the West African country of Nigeria, which happens to be Africa's most populous nation, affect the upcoming elections? This channel, or this question, is channeled to you, Dr. Eddie.
Oh yeah, very definitely. I mean, there is no doubt. Elections wherever, not just in Nigeria, but election, will take place in a context. And I also know that our respective countries, Nigeria included, have assigned, repeatedly some human rights documents that guarantee people's, civilian rights, which means the ability to the freedom of expression and going to the poll in a very secure, safe environment is a part of this freedom of speech and this freedom of association. Very definitely, we have so many examples throughout Africa, Nigeria included, that shows that wherever you have this level of violence, it does instill fear. It does prevent people from getting to the poll. It does prevent the members of the Electoral Commission to perform their duty to the fullest in order to guarantee the integrity of the entire electoral process. So there is no brainer in here, or there is no way to have some very sophisticated demonstration, as long as security issues are mounting and fears are mounting, whether there are verified or not, whether they are substantiated or not, it also and all the time will create some sort of atmosphere that very definitely can again jeopardize the integrity of the electoral processes before, during, and even after the polls.
Dr. Eddie, we get indications that we have Mr. REMI back with us. Mr. REMI, welcome back. Mr. REMI, we're just going to proceed then. Recently, we had the United States of America, US, and Britain that did issue a thorough alert on the West African country of Nigeria regarding the insecurity alert that is taking place there in the West African nation. And now we have this, this is not the first time that these two powers have issued alerts when a country is about going to the polls. Now, the question I'd like to ask is, could this alert derail the 2023 elections that's to take place in Nigeria?
The Nigerian government, to my understanding, the people in Nigeria as well, and the majority of the population seem to show clear resilience. Again, I want to lean back on the comments of members of the civil society organizations and even the president of the Independent National Electoral Commission when they had this forum here in Washington, D.C. at the National Endowment for Democracy. It appears clearly that there is a resilience and there is a desire of the people to have a successful election. We're coming up, early in February. Therefore, I believe that yes, many examples in the past have shown that, security alerts being raised by countries like the United States and Britain, and even by the Nigerian security forces also, that should not be neglected, are very valid and should be taken into consideration. However, for the sake of the viability, for the sake of the political stability in our countries, and then also to underline once again the resilience of the Nigerian people, we should bank on that aspect of the resiliency and how it will translate into the holding of the election in such a way that fraud, voters, intimidation, and anything else that pertains to that category of violence can be minimized for Nigeria to have an election that can be qualified, number one, by the Nigerian authorities. Second, by the candidates. Third, by the Nigerian population, and then by the international community as an electoral process that has been respected in all aspects of integrity, and out of which the result will be accepted by all, which again will lead toward minimizing the chances of people losing their lives and for the kind of violence that we have seen repeatedly over and over.
So this is not the first time that these Western powers are issuing alerts regarding the security situation of a country that is preparing for elections, especially in Africa. Now, how do you analyze this? Why do you think these Western bodies continue to issue these alerts when it comes to when a country is preparing for elections? Why is this persistent? Why is it persistent in Africa?
Well, if we want to make it, in relation to the elections, which has been the case all the time, let's say that, we will be a little bit misleading. The issuance of security alerts is something that's not very often these countries, do. They do have embassies, they do have representation, diplomatic representations in our respective African countries, including Nigeria, which is a huge stakeholder and holds a very great importance for either Great Britain and the United States as well. I am not trying to make a correlation in terms of a security alert that will derail or instill or increase the fear among the Nigerian voters and kind of tamper with the integrity of the electoral process. I think that it should be taken seriously. Due to the fact that what we have seen repeatedly, whether it is Nigeria or in some other countries of the Sahel, some activities that will be related to what I call global violence. However, the most important thing for me in here, Sharon, is the resilience of the Nigerian people. Whatever it is that what we see in terms of violence, I believe we can all lean on the understanding that there is nothing or no power greater than the willingness of a population of a people to elect their own leaders based on their own values and based on their own standards. And this is the type of strength internally that Nigeria will lean on very definitely. As I said again, I was amazed, happy to hear the kind of steps ahead made by the Independent Electoral Commission, as clearly explained by the president of that commission when I heard him speaking here in Washington, D.C., but also some sort of warning given by some other members of the civil society, but yet all that put together shows again the clear determination to have the 2023 election representing what Africa has of dearest, which is having stable nations to negotiate prosperity, economic prosperity, social prosperity, and make sure that people have their civil rights, were respected, their freedom of expression and their freedom of speech respected.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eddie. Mr. Remy, welcome back. Mr. Remy?
It is unfortunate that our brother from Nigeria is having all these technical difficulties.
Yes, definitely. But we're just going to ride on. What do you think, looking at the crisis that's happening in Nigeria from an external point of view, what do you think the people of Nigeria actually want, given the security and the presidential polls that are actually upcoming, that are supposed to take place in 2023?
Here's what I will again, will say that what I've heard from stakeholders, Nigerian stakeholders, number one, and then number two from people again, from an external point of view. I am originally from Cote d'Ivoire, and then we have seen what happened in 2010 in Cote d'Ivoire, what happened in 2015, and even what happened recently in 2020 when the head of state in Cote d'Ivoire negotiated what we call, a third term in office after modifying the constitution. That's number one. From an external point of view, therefore, I see the Nigerian election coming in February 2023 as another opportunity to regain some sort of a trust when it comes to our electoral processes throughout the African continent, especially since the 1990s, when we talked about the necessity of rejuvenating and polishing electoral processes in such a way that transition from one regime to another does not lead to chaos, but leads to more stability. Independent electoral commissions were created. However, we also know that this has not translated necessarily into peaceful electoral processes throughout the continent. Today, Nigeria is standing at the point to again demonstrate that it is not just this economic giant for West Africa, not just this demographic giant for Africa, but also a giant when it comes to peaceful transition of power from a regime to another. And that's what we are all banking on. And it is the same thing that I believe the Nigerian stakeholder that I have heard also wants. They want an electoral process that sends out a message to the entire West Africa, number one, but also to the entire world. Because when we talk about Nigeria being the most populated nation in Africa, let us also not forget that Nigeria is among the most populated nations, in the world in general. And this will send a clear message to this world. Today, with all that but we are witnessing, the contradiction. I want to put in here the war in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia. I want to put into consideration or take into consideration what happened 2020 with COVID-19, the ways in which it was handled, and the some sort of contradictions that were built into that as well. The rise of autocracy. Today, the rise of a digital autocracy, of which Nigeria also was quoted or cited as one of the nations where digital autocracy is rising more and more. When you put all of this together, these upcoming elections present again an opportunity, not just for the Nigerian people, but also for the entire West Africa, the entire Africa region, to think of what is ahead and how the social political challenges that Africa is facing today can be taken care of in here, for lack of a better word. And the last point I want to add on to that, Sharon, very quickly, we also know what happened at the recent United Nations General Assembly, but also of what is diplomatically happening at the UN when it comes to the positions that what many African countries are taking today in terms of either sanctioning or condemning or not condemning what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. I want to link all of those things again to the clear message that the Nigerian people in general will send to the entire world by having a peaceful election that will translate also into what a peaceful transition from one regime to another. We see that what President Buhari is not seeking a third term in office, right? Which is very different, again, from what is happening in many other West African countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso in the past, and many others as well. And Senegal, which today also is at the crossroad because the sitting president is not being clear about whether he will change the constitution to run for a third term, but the opposition is already raising those concerns. So, Sharon, this is what I believe that the challenge ahead for Nigeria and what the stakes are for this country in terms of sending clear messages to the neighboring country in West Africa.
Thank you immensely, Doc. In order to proceed, in your opinion, as the program officer of at the Solidarity Center Africa Department, what would you say the federal government of Nigeria needs to do in order for the country to better tackle the insecurity crisis that is affecting the nation?
Continue to do what they are doing. I do not believe that with the means that they have, I am not on the side of people who believe that nothing is being done to quell down this level of insecurity, because the first mission of any elected official, whether it is at the national level, at the federal level, at the local level, at the state level, or whichever level it is to ensure the security of their population, of their voters, of the workers. We know that with all these phenomena of insurgency that we see, it prevents people from working. And when I say workers in and here, I'm looking at those in both the informal sector, the formal sector. I'm looking at herders. I'm looking at people working in the agricultural sector. I'm looking at people in the rural areas who live on their farms, for instance, or the agricultural products that or the products that they produce. So the Nigerian government, number one, will continue to do this and beef up security in and here. One of the other things that needs to be done, I believe, is the civic engagement, creating more opportunities for civil society organizations, for instance, right, to conduct advocacy campaigns, but also voters education campaigns that include also some pieces of how to manage, what the security situation will be key in there, because the Nigerian population, I believe, should also be a strong participant in those security measures. I'm not calling in here to give a weapon to each of those voters. That's not the point I'm making. But I'm talking more about empowering those civil society organizations, even labor unions, to participate in this awareness raising, so as for people to be aware of the surroundings and be capable of averting anything that may happen in terms of violence even before it comes in today. Because Sharon, when we talk about the kind of security alerts being raised by the United States, by Great Britain, and even other countries, even Nigeria security services itself, we are looking at more of what we call, terrorism. That is true. However, security is also about the capacity that people have to move from point A to point B, to cast their ballot and go back home without being threatened by whoever it is. May it be an international actor, a local actor, or whatever it is. Security is also at that level. Security is also giving the possibility to those people who do not have access to the internet. And for that one, I believe that Nigeria has a good plan, based on what we have heard from the chair of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Nigeria has prepared to face that and give also a chance to people, even people with living with disability, to be able to participate in this electoral process. The other thing I want to mention Sharon, in our elections, and when I say our elections, I want to look at the entire Africa. Very often we have heard about the voters registration and voters, work cards, for instance, to participate in the election. It has always been a problem. And I believe that the Nigerian government should step up the game in there and make sure that as many people who are eligible to vote or who are in age of voting are duly registered to vote, that there is some sort of a clearer or better transparency when it comes to that, that people are given the voting card that they need to go to the poll and vote, and during, after the poll, that, the results are tabulated in a more transparent way, and of course transmitted to the bodies. I think these are some dispositions at the level of security, but also logistically, that the Nigerian government should be investing more in, so that February 2023 becomes a stamp of a success and a clear warning signal that Nigeria again will be sending to the entire West Africa, number one, to Africa, number two, and to the rest of the world, number three.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eddie. Mr. Adebayo, good afternoon once again.
Good afternoon, and please accept my apologies for the hitch transmission. I think it has to do much with it.
It's okay. It's a privilege having you once again. Okay, you are the public interest commentator. Now, it's worth saying that the interest of Nigerians is paramount when it comes to, of course, bringing about the growth of every nation and the growth of particularly Nigeria. Now, as a public interest commentator, what do you think, given you're in Nigeria, what do you think is the interest or should be the interest of Nigerians?
Thank you very much, Sharon. Of course, the interest of every Nigerian at this place is to have a festival of leadership recruitment. And that process has started, of course, election does not just happen on the day that you are casting your vote. Election is a process. And the process has started in Nigeria, like Doctor said the other time. We have heard or seen people going out to register to vote. INEC, that is the Independent National Electoral Commission, is asking people to go all about to collect their vote, the eligible voters. And of course, you can see that from September 28th of this year, the electioneering, the campaign process commenced. And Nigerians are sincerely, I want to tell you that Nigerians are in good mood to see that they vote for their preferred candidate in February 2023. The mood of the nation is very good in particular, because you see people, especially the supporters of each presidential candidate, going about marketing their candidate. And of course, you see, there are elections, there are information that have been pushed out. People are saying that you can conduct things safely without assaulting or attacking the sensibility of any other candidate. So for now, the mood of the nation is fine. Nigerians are optimistic. They are anticipating that there would be each free, credible, and acceptable election in 2023. So all that everybody is waiting for, I can tell you, is that we are talking about security concerns ahead of the election. People want the nation to be safe. The alert by the security, the United States Embassy in Abuja last week, that has been followed up by the United Kingdom, Germany, and other nations. Take concern to the number of people. I live there in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. So I can tell you that there are reactions and people are wondering what will be and what may not happen. But the security agencies here in Nigeria, including the secret police, the Department of State Services, have risen to the occasion, going as far as making some arrests of people that were suspected to be behind the alleged attack on the nation, of course. And they have been assuring the nation, residents in the FCC and throughout the nation, the Inspector General of the Police, IGP Usman Baba Kali, has been saying the same thing, assuring that yes, every step are being taken to guarantee the safety of every Nigerian, whether we are voting, whether we are not voting. But we know that once an operation like this is happening, of course, people will be taking that. Of course, some people will be rethinking their availability to cast their votes in an election where political decisions will be made. We know that the incumbent president is not seeking a return into power, but he will be serving out his second constitutionally permitted term, May 29th of next year. So the stakes are high, and of course, there are interests that are looking forward to what could become the outcome of that election. I can tell you that the spirits are high. Nigerians are still going about with their campaign. Nigerians are still marketing their candidates. Nigerians are still speaking to themselves. They are building structures, building networks. And I can tell you that, yes, as much as there are those security concerns, Nigerians will be finding out the vote. This is not the first time. From 1999, when we started, especially when Nigeria was just coming out from the military regime, you could see the apprehension of at that time. Of course, it wasn't as much as when from 2009, when we had the first shot from the Boko Haram terrorism that once seized the grip of the nation. But today, yes, we still have Hydra-headed security instances in Nigeria. The thinking of the Boko Haram terrorism, we have the normal clashes between the herders and farmers. We have that one that we call the banditry. There's kidnapping here and there. You know, those are the ones that we know that the people are seriously afraid of, regardless of the election. Nigerians find it difficult today to move from point A to point B. Commuting between communities have been of major concern because of the fear that one could be kidnapped, it could just be abducted, and these guys are asking for ransoms, millions of naira. So these are the major concerns that, of course, we expect that as much as the security agencies are coming up with, there must be much more to be done to douse the tension so that Nigerians can pass their vote. I'd say in 2015, when the incumbent president was coming in, it was like Nigeria was under the siege. But then, under 6 weeks that was asked by the then former president, Goodluck Jonathan, we were able to defeat terrorism. We were able to reclaim communities and little areas, in certain areas in the northeast, and election held in that year. We still have the same security structure in Nigeria. Our agencies are still at the last, and we believe that much more could be done. In the last 1 month or thereabout or more, apart from yes, the instances of all the pockets of kidnappings and other things, I can tell you that the insecurity coming from terrorism has been lowered dramatically. So, I mean, drastically, I wanted to say. So, I believe that with more collaboration between the agencies in the security sector, the people, and of course, the government, we can do a lot without this. And I'm sure, I'm very, very optimistic that 2023 election will come, and of course, it will be very, very effective.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adebayo. Just to proceed, having listened to you, I'm tempted to ask this question. Do you think there is a link between the security crisis in your country and the system of governance?
That would be very hard to say. Of course, there was always speculation to feel that there are individuals that are fueling insecurity because of political interest. That have been suspected in various times, of course. Certain individuals have been fingered to be the sponsor of terrorism. There are individuals that you are. There was a time government was promising that they want to publish the names of people that are behind terrorism, sponsoring either as financials or as direct sponsors. But then we have not really, Nigerians are not, as much as 2009, I can tell that Nigerians have not been briefed efficiently to know this. But what government is doing at the back door is to ensure that the financial lifeline to terrorists are cut off. I know there are these policies around the National Financial Intelligence Unit where government monitor every transaction if possible. Of course, we know that sometimes last year, the government of Nigeria moved against transactions in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because of the fear that terrorists may have the access to this. Currently, the federal government of Nigeria is thinking that from 15th of December this year, the current currency note will be changed or redesigned so that they could be able to intercept the currencies that are in the hands of the either terrorists or criminal elements. So these are the things that I know of, but whether it is the political that are driving it or state-sponsored terrorism, as some people want to say, as I'm talking to you as a Nigerian, I have no such proof to say, but I know that government is doing almost everything it can. The capacity, of course, we have said it all over. The government has also responded to say the capacity of the military in particular is overwhelmed. We have the military doing the policing work in Nigeria. Unlike before, when we are growing up, you not see the military everywhere. Now you go on the streets, you see the military, especially men of the Nigerian armed forces, doing certain things that are meant for the local police, which is supposed to be the first line of defense in this country. So all of them are collaborating, the National Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Department of State Services, the German and other agencies coming together to ensure that whatever it is that we have in the country is not affecting the lifestyle of the Nigerian people and the living and movement of every Nigerian. I can tell you that those fears are there, they are real, and of course, Nigerians are responding to it. But whether they are coming from the part of government, I cannot tell because I cannot say such.
Thank you so much, Mr. Remi. Now, it's been said that most of the affected parts of the country are the northeast. We have Abuja that was attacked to the prison of Kuje and so on. Why do you think there are these persistent attacks in the West African country?
Well, I think the first thing is to note is that, of course, terrorists only mission, what their main mission is to cause fear and to cause panic, to diminish government, and to, of course, embolden themselves to prove to the world that they have the capacity to undermine the government and to take over. You can tell that whatever it is that we have in the country, the terrorist organization want to do everything that they want to. Recently, when the government started moving, I am happy that you mentioned the Kuje prison, and after the Kuje prison, there was an attack on the presidential guard at Buhari area of Abuja. And this presidential guard, we call them the guards of brigade. They are the ones that are responsible directly to the security of the president. And those men were attacked at a suburb of Abuja, the capital of the nation. So afterwards, the security agencies moved they unleashed terror to counter this force by pushing back these terrorists as far as Kaduna. Kaduna before now is in the west, in the northwest of Nigeria, the neighboring city, to Abuja, the federal capital. Kaduna has been the hotbed of terrorism and kidnapping. In fact, traveling from Abuja to Kaduna or from Kaduna to Abuja was like someone trying to commit suicide. It was so bad. But of late after that attack, security agencies moved to forests, to fringes, moving against these insurgents. And of course, defeating them, they pushed them back. Otherwise, the courage with which they attacked Kuje prison and at which they were attacking the neighborhood of the FCT gave that fear and impression that they were making every effort to take over the FCT. And this, we are talking about the organization like the ISWAP that was already hibernating in neighboring states like Niger State. Niger State is just like 6 kilometers to the FCT, just like Kaduna and Lokoja, depending on where you are coming from. So these are the issues. But then, the FCT or Abuja is the heart of the nation, is the soul of the nation. It's like someone targeting Washington, D.C. That's the seat of government of the United States. An attack on the FCT, would mean that it would send strong signal that the heart of the nation, the seat of government, has been conquered. So that's what these people are trying to do. And of course, you cannot rule it out that there was that audacious move to take over government, if they can, But government has been repelling them, and I'm sure that the move since that time has been very, very successful. That's why you can say that the instances of insecurity has been lowered. from what it used to be before all those attacks were talking about.
Thank you so much, Mr. Remy. Just to come back to you, Dr. EDI ERIC, just to reiterate, your program officer at the Solidarity Center, Africa Department. Now, how do you think Nigeria and other African nations can boost solidarity amongst themselves so that cases of insecurity shouldn't be popping up every now and then?
In previous conversations, I have said that repeatedly, that the mastering of what I call the capacity of fire is key for survival, for boosting security in most of our West African nations. When you look at the situation in Mali, you look at the situation in Burkina Faso, you look at the situation in Niger, in Chad, if I want to lump that country in here, or countries of the Sahel, where you have repeatedly attacked by that, you know, what we term today terrorists, there is some sort of incapacity independently of these countries to react to those. Logistically, it is quasi impossible. Therefore, where the solidarity comes in here, all these countries that we know I just named are part of the ECOWAS. I believe that it is time for the ECOWAS that has sought some transformation after the 1990s to move from a purely economic body into a regional economic and political body to ensure that, you know, there is a peace in the region. The ECOWAS need to step up the game in here in terms of how to independently and clearly address the security issue, bringing the interests of all these countries together. That's number one. Number two, we all know that the cross-country movement of people can also be some sort of tensions or clear opportunities for this type of violence that we are addressing today. How are we securing our borders? How are we watching over our borders? What is the cooperation and collaboration between the different, you know, police or security forces among these different countries to make sure that, you know, in a more coordinated way, there is a clear reaction and better ways to prepare against this type of insurgency that we are talking about. That's another thing to put on the table when we talk about solidarity. The other level of solidarity, we are mentioning elections today. I have heard of the chair of the INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, mentioning the technical assistance that they have brought to other countries in West Africa. And I believe that in terms of elections, considering the level of contest, the level of disagreement around voters registration, distribution of voters card, and creating some sort of security for people to cast their ballot, and even tabulating the ballot and announcing the results, there is some sort of expertise that those countries can also share among themselves in such a way that, you know what, they again reinforce this solidarity among themselves. I'm insisting on that because as we talk about the type of security, the type of threats to voters, you know, with security, we are certainly insisting much more on global violence, but there are also some other forms of personal securities that I want us to bring to the conversation in here. For instance, to what extent an electoral context or process before the ballots, during the day of the ballot, after the day of ballot, creates also some sort of opportunities for criminal bands, for instance, you know, what to operate. Where do we stand today in the case of Nigeria, for instance, for groups that are thinking more of secessionist ideas, you know, what we hear here and there of what is happening in southeastern part of Nigeria with some sort of resurgence legacy of the Biafran independence movement, to what extent all of those things can, again, create new opportunities of violence and then derail the beautiful electoral process that the Nigerians, will want to have. In order for all those things, to be taken into consideration, I believe that widening the gap, therefore, those West African countries can do that. And then the last point in terms of solidarity, again, is what is happening in the neighboring countries, and to what extent those neighboring countries of Nigeria and even the other countries, are themselves internally maintaining some sort of a peace and security because of fearing what we call the domino effect. What happened in Guinea, what happened in Burkina Faso, what happened in Mali. Can we say that there is some sort of a domino effect, what correlation in here? In the case, again, of a displacement of a people, what happens, right, in a neighboring country when approaching the Nigerian election, when there is chaos, instability? Where do people pour in? To what extent, this displacement of a people or this migration of a people because of violence can become, again, another source of a fear of how the integrity of the electoral process is maintaining. I have put quite a number of things in here, but I believe that opportunities for solidarity to be beefed up among these West African nations exist. Sending clear civil society organizations based in Africa, based in West Africa, to observe the election and then also put the stampede is not something that is beyond the purview of those African nations to do. But again, to wrap this up in here, I believe that the stakes are high for Nigeria to stand a strong mission, a strong message to the entire West Africa. Reason why it is in the interest of other West African nations to follow closely what is happening in Nigeria and what will be happening early next year, February 2023.
EDI ERIC, to wrap up with you, Mr. Remy, what do you think is the way forward given everything that's happening in your country? Mr. Remy, are you with us?
Your microphone is closed, my brother.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Right on.
Good. Thank you very much. Yes, I think, like I said initially, I am very, very optimistic that my country will conduct a very good election in 2023. I am optimistic that the people will come out. We are sincerely optimistic to see a stable country ahead of that time. The security instances that we've been having, I mentioned the other time, it's not just 23, that is raising their heads when the elections are corner. There are feelings of the disenchantment here and there, disenchantment, because like the doctor mentioned, hyper feelings. Even in the southwest where I come from, people have the notion that the government. But then there is this also expectation and the anxiety or anxiousness to change government. People want to see what happens in the pro-Buhari era. They want to have a fresh lead to the national happenings, either in the politics, security, and everything. I think that's more. Under this president, we have had certain experiences that need to change. And when the doctor was talking about collaboration among Africa and neighboring African nations, also part of what we are looking at in Nigeria is a socio-political collaboration among even the nations around the Nigerian Republic countries. Don't forget the Chad. The Chad has receded to almost about 90% that has fueled insecurity. It has been the alternative location for terrorism in the northwest. And they have made this country unsafe because farming and the fishing activities that used to happen in that region is not happening anymore. And we're talking about countries that a lake that borders almost about 6 or 5 countries. So we almost do everything. It's not a solution that can come with the spirit of man, but then the truth is that as these are showing forth, Nigerians are responding to it. But on the part of the actors themselves, I think that is where we have major things to do. The political actors, the kind of messages that they take out there must one that it must be devoid of hate speech and fake news. When we have that, we lower the anxiety to make the barest minimum. Of course, if the people are not, I mean, and we are not united against each other, if people are not, if the people are not brought up to fight each other, the anxiety level will go down. So to us, we know that there could be certain impacts that we are witnessing. The anxiety to see a new government, the desire and the eagerness to welcome a new government.
Can you get us?
That we have. And you can see that happen already. From about 2 years ago when we had the NSAS movement in Nigeria till now, the younger people are looking forward to talking.
Mr. Remy, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I wish we could continue this conversation, but time is definitely at our neck this afternoon. And so thank you immensely for taking our time to join us on today's edition.
Thank you very much, Sharon. It's my pleasure to join you today.
Thank you equally to you, Dr. Eddie. It was a pleasure having you on today's program.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for having me. And I want to end by saying that, yes, there is hope with Nigeria with, again, with the number of young people that have registered for this upcoming election. And they need the protection. And we hope that the Nigerian government, the international community will join hands definitely to make this promising electoral process, deliver, its promises to the entire world.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's edition of Voice Over your Pan-African channel for you Media Africa. I've been NJIX NABESEH for a presentation. Do have a great time in company of our programs.
Thank you.